Physiological karma. What is it, and how can knowing about it transform your life for the better? Let's talk about it. I'm Professor Spira, and I practice something called the Mucusless diet healing system. I've done so for over 18 years and have helped thousands of people transform their lives for the better. And today I want to talk about physiological karma. So many of you might be familiar with this concept of karma. This, on a scientific level, in the physical world, we would call it cause and effect. Something happens and then there is a reaction as a result of that original happening. Cause and effect. But then in Eastern traditions and a number of various philosophical or religious or spiritual traditions, there's the concept of the same thing happening in the spiritual realm or the emotional realm, or in realms that science, current modern science, is unable to detect or to study or measure at this moment. So on the physical level, if we're talking about physiological karma, we're talking about the karma that revolves around one's diet and the cause and effect of one's diet. So on the physical level, like that's sort of like the basis, the first, people do kind of understand that if you eat poorly, if you eat in a way that is not in line with nature on some level, then there is some kind of consequences for that. But there's not enough of a connection. There's not enough of a connection for people that get a stroke and the heart attack and the cancers and the respiratory issues and all of these different things that, when too encumbered, when too filthy, can then become fatal. There's not enough of a connection there yet, and that's something that we are trying to do, that we hope to spread that information. But then on the next level, there's a deeper level that we have to address over and above the physical, which is the long-term emotional issues, the long-term spiritual consequences. There's some other things at play that we really have to consider and take a look at. Now, one of the things that people sometimes will say, well, karma is really, doesn't seem to work. The filthiest people are the ones that seem to have the most success. The people that eat the worst and live diametrically opposed to nature's laws are the ones that seem to not function properly. The ones that seem to do a great, live these great lives, the billionaires and the millionaires, and they seem to just be able to just live with impunity. They just have no problems. But that is somewhat of a, I say this, kind of a red herring, or you're not really reading that in its proper context. So if you take somebody that is a billionaire, they might have some momentary joys, and of course we've been conditioned to believe that in the material mythology, that those that have the materials, that have access to all the resources, all the money, all the properties, all that's what it's all about. But the karmic repercussion of that might be that these are folks that have access to the worst of the worst foods imaginable. And that eating is going to then perpetuate the poor behavior that we often associate with people that are very greedy, or very, that have no part of them that wants to help anybody. If they do give to a charity, it's about a tax break, trying to play the game. You're talking about folks, instead of idolizing them, or the other way around, instead of being really, feeling bad about them, you have to understand it's about the physiological karma. The other stuff, the money, it could be someone that is a billionaire, but if they're doing things they need to be doing physiologically, they're going to be fine. You got to understand the physiological karma. See, people want to make up that it's everything else, that it's not that the physiological karma is like secondary and it's about being a good person or ethical or some sort of faith or believing in something. And I'm saying that first and foremost, the cornerstone of any type of karmic discussion has to be about the physiological standpoint, because when you take that out of there and you say, well, it's just about a belief. As long as you have faith in this, you can eat whatever you want. Just believe in this idea or this entity or worship this concept. That's a recipe for physiological disaster, because now you have no boundaries to, you can just eat whatever you want and then just ask for forgiveness later. I mean, that is that's very problematic. So let's explore even deeper. Let's kind of get a little bit deeper into this. So there's an old song that I every once in a while like to see. This is a good friend of mine, Vic, used to talk about this. That's where I kind of got this from, where he said, would you like to swing on a star, carry moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are? Or would you rather be a pig? You know, or would you rather be a cat or a dog or a cow, or would you, a bear, a fish? Would you rather be one of these animals? So you can delight in the pus activities, the pus eating activities of the world, the worldliness. You can be a member of the world stage here and do all of the things that have been considered acceptable. Just because the masses say it's acceptable or it's supported by law does not mean that it's right. Slavery was law. You were breaking the law if you helped free slaves. So let's not get into the law crap. Let's deal with, well, physiological, well, people's law crap. We deal with physiological laws, universal laws that regardless of if you know them or not, you have to abide by them, and they will, and they're going to affect you. So if you take somebody, and they can be, in their day, they seem like they're a good person, but maybe, you know, growing up, they go fishing. They went fishing with their father, and so now they taking their kid fishing. You got to understand, every time you catch a fish, you've taken this life, and you will be held accountable for it. But the thing is, you don't have control over when you're going to have to repay that, and you don't know how it's going to be repaid. And by the time you repay it, you will not be able to connect this current behavior, this deplorable behavior that you're doing right now. You will be unable to connect that back to whatever happens that allows you to remove and eliminate this karma. If you're lucky, you can remove it within your life. If you don't, now you got to deal with it in another plane of existence, another sphere, or back here again later on, depending on what you believe in. I won't get too far down that rabbit hole, but cause and effect. We're still in that. We just can't. This is, you know, things when they call it mystical, it's usually in the realm of, you know, esoteric or mystical or supernatural. It's not that it's supernatural, it's just we can't measure it right now. We can measure the physical body. We can see somebody eating a bunch of meat and then they have heart attacks and cancers and strokes. So we can measure all of that. But when it comes to catching a fish when you're 16 years old and you caught a fish, then when you're 55, you have a car accident, you have a stroke, you have any number of things that can sort of butterfly effect and trigger that. And so one of the things that's really important with physiological karma concept is when you're practicing the mucusless diet, or when you are essentially trying to practice a diet that rewrites your physiological karma. This rewrites your destiny. Mucusless diet healing system and practicing it properly rewrites your destiny because it allows you to burn through and eliminate karma unlike anything else. It brings these energies, these things that maybe you would have had to go through in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s over time, and maybe you wouldn't have been able to eliminate it all. Now, if you start in a diet, say I started when I was 19, I'm bringing some of this karma to me and I'm burning it off now through the process of fasting, through the process of eating mucus-free, by doing enemas, by clearing out my entire body of waste and toxic, filthy waste. I am essentially, practicing the removal of this karma, the potential karmic repercussions. This is important to understand when you go through heavy elimination and very uncomfortable elimination. Because it's not, and it's one thing I try to tell people, when you fast and you're doing this stuff, and you're gonna have times where it doesn't feel good, it's not pain, it's not fun, but now you're paying reparations. What does that mean? We like to say that. That's another way to kind of say the same thing. Paying reparations. You did the crime, now you have to do the time and pay whatever the cost is. But the beauty and why the mucusless diet is such like something to pray, be yell to the mountains and joy, praise be the universe. Why that's so good is because you don't have the total control, but now you understand what's going on and you have some control. When you're laying there on nature's operating table during a fast, you're removing not only the physical waste, but removing spiritual obstructions. And it's the only way. I hate to tell some of the spiritualists that really, really, really want to argue that diet has nothing to do with anything. And I have bad news for you guys, because if you're not talking about removal of obstruction and being in alignment, you can't just be in alignment because you think you are spiritually and you do some kind of practice and breath work and this and that, and you think that's enough. And I'm saying that is not enough. If you're not in line physiologically, because there's these folks, they're doing that kind of stuff, and then you see them sitting down eating dead animal flesh and eating carcass. How spiritual are you eating carcass still? Like, after all this information that's out here, it's so known that these animals do not need to suffer for us to. I haven't eaten meat 18 years. I'm not a puddle. I'm not a puddle on the ground. And I'm not supplementing, so you know what I mean? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's come on, let's do this. What? It's just because and I say that like that because that's the only way some puss eaters can even understand. Like, you have to come at them like that. Like, it's like, look, man, and it still won't get it, because there is such a thing as some people have gone past a point of no return in terms of their consciousness. Physiologically, there's always a chance. If you're still breathing, there's an opportunity for the transition. There's an opportunity to burn off some of that karma before you pass. There's always that opportunity, but consciously, there's some people that I think have already sort of signed their soul over to the physiological devils, for lack of a better metaphor or concept. And in those cases, you just got to kind of get out their way. Just let them be like, yep, just when I see, because I can see them coming, across the street, and I just walk on by. I'm getting out of your way. Go ahead. It's like, yeah, I think the barbecue shack is probably, is down there to the right. I'm out your way, because you don't want to get in that. Like, when there's that kind of really bad negative karma involved, you don't want to get in. That's on its way to destruction. That's like I mean, and I say this, or there's some people that want to try to save people, where you want like, and there's sometimes you just need to share what you're going to share and just put it there and then walk away, because you don't want to be in the car with them if it gets hit by the train, you know. And not to say that I won't, you know, I'm not saying, I'm just saying there's a good chance that that's going to end very badly, and you don't want to be there as collateral damage for whatever goes down with that. So this, I could talk about this topic for a really long time, and I'll maybe bring it up because I know I use the term a lot, and I know most people just sort of have a surface level understanding of this. But every time I see an animal, because it's kind of like this, okay, we go back to that story of somebody fishing, and you get this fish, and you take it out of the water, and now it's burning. That's why it moves like that, because when it hits the oxygen, it's not made like for that, and it smells terrible. Oh man, this fish thing is so weird that we just got into that and thought that was a good idea to eat these little pus pillows that swim in the water. It's not a good idea. But when you do that, and you fish or whatever, what about the soul of that fish? Where did that fish come from? Now for me, I think in many cases, those lower animals at one time were humans on some plane of existence, maybe not on this earth, maybe, I don't know. We're getting out here now. We're gonna go a little bit outside of the YouTube box that I'm supposed to stay in when we talk about things in YouTube, where you're supposed to sort of stay more very mainstream, very not interesting, you know. So I'm sorry if this gets a little too interesting. But if you start to, so every time I see an animal, I'm seeing an underdeveloped human that had its day in the sun as a human, but ate themselves down into that state. And the perpetuation, there was this perpetual momentum that they ate so poorly that it created a momentum that caused them to just continue to descend down into these lower forms of being. Yet Mother Nature still gives them a chance. They although they no longer have free will, which is something that we have, we can decide, do we want to kill this animal and eat it, or do we want to eat these plants or go get this mango off the tree? So that's our gift. We have that gift, and most of us squander that gift, unfortunately, in this day and age. We squander that gift and give in to our addictions, the baser, so things that we shouldn't even be able to have a taste for, but because of our ancestors we do, so we give into it. This causes a really intense perpetuation and momentum downward. And when it's bad enough, you're talking about someone that, like I said, that some people you're not going to be able to help, and you just got to get out of the way and let them descend down into where they're destined to go.
Hey, who is it?
Because they got to work their karma out. So they might have to work their karma out in the form of a bear, or in the form of a cat or a dog or a fish. I mean, if you have to go down and be a slug, woo! I mean, what did you do to eat your way down into a slug, you know, or a snail or something slimy like that, you know?
Who is it?
So I don't want that. So for me, and these are, you know, this is my these theories. These are, do with it what you will.
No.
Everybody, you know, there is no culture without mythology. And so this is something this is where I'm at, how I see the world. It's not ad hoc. You know, there's some reincarnation traditions that kind of have this idea of, you know, you can be human and maybe come back as a butterfly, then come back as a poor person, come back as a rich person, come back as a dog. Like, no, I'm not into that. I'm saying you're either going, there's two directions. You're either going toward Homo spiritus, like you're ascending into a higher state of humanness, or you are descending down into lower states of what we call the animal kingdom. So, you know, gorilla, like the so-called primates, they were the ones that were humans like the soonest. And I know this is like the exact opposite of the theory of evolution, the whole evolutionary theory, and that, I mean, I could spend the next hour talking about that and breaking down that theory, but I don't. We'll do that another day. But essentially, just to understand where we're coming from, so we're seeing this eating thing is like I'm saying, it's causing you either go in one or two directions. Physiologically, you can be a good person but who defines what good is, ethical, because that's a whole other philosophical discussion. What is ethics? Who is and is not good, and is it good to be good? There's some philosophies that say there is no such thing as good. There is no such thing as, like, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying, and from one perspective, you can say, well, yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't care about the consequences. So if you are happy with your journey and you're happy with potentially coming back as a gorilla in that kind of form, or you're happy potentially, because if you went fishing and you got that fish, it would make sense that eventually someone's gonna catch you and you will be a fish to be caught. I mean, now we're karma again. I mean, it's not even radical. To me, I guess, I don't know. You have to tell me. To me, this is very logical, makes all the sense in the world. So whether you would believe it or not, to me, it just makes sense to just do your best to live in alignment with nature. I mean, it can't hurt. What's it hurt? It's not gonna hurt anything. If anything, it's gonna help, maybe. It might prevent you from becoming a pig, becoming a whatever. And maybe I'll show here's some images from the Bhagavad Gita. This is great stuff. I mean, this is some of the wisdom that's passed down from the past generations that most of us choose to not listen to, or when we interpret it, we're so constipated that our interpretation of it is really messed up and skewed. But these aren't new ideas. It's just now we can kind of formulate them, line them up together a little different way. But to me, if you're talking about you're a spiritual being, then you got to be talking about fruits and green leafy vegetables and transition and cleaning up yourself. At the minimum, like that's just the bare minimum, because not everybody that does that necessarily is trying to be on this enlightenment path. It just happens as a result of cleaning himself up. So they're not even trying to, like, I'm not trying to become enlightened, but it starts happening and you start cleaning yourself up. You don't really have a choice. The consciousness is going to grow. That's why I'm so intent on getting people into the diet first and foremost, really before raising conscious, because there's a limit. When you're eating like that, there's a limit to the conversations that we can even have in terms of consciousness raising, to be able to explore together higher states of being and higher concepts and the potential for humanity and transmutation of the blood and the sun. And I mean, people love that stuff, and they like to put it in their movies and their books and that kind of stuff, but they're not living. You can live all that stuff.
But the animal's revolution was only dimly remembered. Outwardly, Animal Farm appeared prosperous, but the animals themselves were no better off, with the exception of the pigs.
To the day when pigs own and operate farms everywhere.
I mean, wouldn't you rather live that than just see it on Netflix? So we have work to do, and it all comes down back to just very simple. Physiological liberation. Burn off your physiological karma. It starts with controlling what you put in your mouth. That's like just first and foremost. People think that it's you're controlling your thoughts. I'm saying no. I mean, you have to initially have a thought to start eating better and to start cleaning yourself out. But if that's not where your thinking is at, but you think you're really heavy and advanced and off into Enlightenment Central, then good luck with that. Like I said, far be it from me to get in your way. I'm not forcing you to watch this video. I'm not going to stand in your way right now, because I know that Mother Nature is going to do things in her time in the way that is deemed necessary by the universe. So I don't need to do nothing. Like, I don't need to, hey, let me just get out the way. Now, if you come at me in my space, we have a little different conversation about that. But as far as that, hey, go on down that road. I mean, I would prefer when there's enough consciousness, when it's raised high enough as a collective around the world, that's when you start to outlaw the slaughterhouses and you outlaw people serving dead animal carcass at hospitals. But we're not in that area yet. That's down the road a little bit. We got some transitioning to do. There's a whole lot of really bad disease and death that we have to kind of get through before we can, I think, get to that level of consciousness. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I would love to just see us adopt that, and we could really sidestep a whole lot of pain and suffering on this planet. But like I said, I think there's certain things that are at a point of no return, and so that karma has to just work itself out. So you just got to get out of its way. But for those of you that have heard this message, that means that your karma is such that you're given this choice, because most people aren't given this choice. This video will probably have, it'll have a handful of views. There's very few people that are going to be able to get this show. Now, if you think some of your friends and family might be open to this, then feel free to share this video, spread this word. But I know this is a little heavier than the normal discussion that we have on the Mucusless diet, and so this I don't expect too much from this video, as I know. But I know those of y'all that are watching to this point are the real folks that are really, that y'all are serious, and so I appreciate y'all. And then I know you appreciate this, so that's great. But so I hope you enjoyed this. I think that people always want me to make spiritual videos and that kind of stuff, and there's reasons why I don't want to just come out and just always just say, well, this is what I believe, and then you should believe, because I don't want to come off like that. Like, I don't want you to believe something just because I believe it. So I put this out here as a philosophy to explore. If you were taking a philosophy course, you don't have to believe in Aristotle's ethics or Plato's ethics or anybody. You examine their ideas, and then you analyze, compare, contrast, and then allow them to enrich your life, adopt what you want to adopt, what's useful for you. So I present this in that spirit, as a philosophy, as something to think about, as a spiritual concept within that framework. I'm not interested in anybody just blindly believing something. And this is just an introductory video. There's more to this. This gets deeper, but you got to start somewhere. So thank you so much. As always, like I said, if you like this, hit the like button. subscribe to the channel, and right here, this is a good video that I want you to check out. So don't go anywhere. Just click this box right here and check out this other video, and I will see you over there.